So, welcome to Barbells, Banter podcast with your host, me, Callum Sully. I am joined by a special guest this evening, mental health therapist, Jin Lalli. Jin, how are you up in the... well, you are in Edinburgh right now, aren't you?
That's right, yeah, I'm in Edinburgh. Yeah.
How cold is it there?
It's cold. It's cold and dark.
I went there once in March a few years ago, and no one really prepared me. People say, "Oh, it's cold in Scotland." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm from I live in the highest market town in England, right? So how cold can it be? It snows here all the time. Oh boy! The first thing I did was go to Primark and buy like 2 hoodies and go up to Edinburgh Castle. I'm like, "What the hell is this weather?"
Yeah. But they say in Edinburgh you can have 4 seasons in one day.
Right.
So it can be really cold, and then the afternoon the sun will come out, and then it'll rain in the evening. We just get a bit of everything in one day as well. So yeah, you have to be prepared for all weathers when you go out the house.
Yeah, I can imagine that. But that being said, I do love it up there.
It is. It's a great city.
So you graduated there, which we're going to talk about in there, and obviously you've stayed there because you're living there. You're living there now. I wanted to touch on then. So we are streaming this. Obviously, you might be listening to this on a podcast or watching on YouTube, but this is also being streamed in my online membership group. And what we've been talking about with those guys is mental health at Christmas, and that's going to kind of be what we're here to talk about today. And there was no one better. I had this planned anyway, and there was no one better to come and join me than Jin in this situation, because that's exactly Jin is specialising. And I kind of think that this is something that's important to you too, Jin. Like this time of year, I imagine is really where you try and get your message across.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's just so much pressure this time of year to get it right. And with everything going on in the world as well, Callum, right now, there's a cost of living crisis and people are spending too much money. So I hate this. Do you get this a lot? Like people sort of say, "Are you ready for Christmas? Oh, are you ready for Christmas?"
I had it about 3 times today.
And I'm like, well, yeah, it comes around every year on the 25th. So like, what's the surprise? So yeah, I've been ready for a while. But also like, what are you ready for? Like what?
Yeah.
It's a roast dinner. It's a roast dinner, but you're replacing the chicken with a turkey.
And isn't it mad that this whole build-up, this whole ordeal, which seems to get worse every year, is for one day? I mean,
it's
you
marketing.
Can technically
it's
more
marketing.
to... Yeah. I mean, this is the first year I'm hosting, right, which is probably what's caused me quite a bit of stress, because I've never hosted before. But I bought a house this year, so naturally... that was always a part of the plan, right? Oh, wow, like Christmas at yours.
Yeah.
And like you just said, it's just a roast dinner. I can handle that. But it's all the extra pressure that's not necessary. What about crackers, tablecloths, getting extra chairs in? I'm like, whoa, let me just cook a roast dinner. Let me cook a roast dinner.
Yeah. Honestly, no one's going to notice. And also, delegate. So, right, you're bringing the crackers, you bring the dessert. Can you bring 2 extra chairs? So get that message out there that we're not doing everything. And you know what? People love to help. People love to help. People love to be helpful. So I'm sure if you said to someone who's come in, any of your guests, any of your friends or family, "Oh, you know what? Could you bring some crackers? I've got everything else sorted, but could you bring the crackers?" They'll be like, "Yeah, of course we can." People always say, "What can we do? What can we do to help you?" There's very few people that I would hope that would come round and just say, "Right, I'm not doing anything." And if they are, you know what? Don't invite them. But, ask for help. But like, I see it as it's a roast dinner. And all we've got is these other traditions, like you said, the Christmas crackers, or, someone wants to do another tradition. I don't know, whatever you have. When do you open the presents, in the morning or in the evening? Change the traditions if you want to, especially if you've got a new house, it's your first Christmas. You might want to start a new tradition. You might want to give up an old one. And you might want to start a new one. And if you've got little children in the house, like they might want to start a new tradition. So we put a lot of pressure on ourselves because all those adverts on TV from all the supermarkets, they're selling you the perfect Christmas.
Yeah.
So you see, oh yeah, the little cute kids around the table and granny's there and it's all perfect. I don't know about you, Callum, but I don't know any family like that. Certainly not mine.
I saw a
Someone's
fantastic
not
advert.
talking. Go on.
Yeah, I saw a fantastic advert. Sorry, I shared it on my page just
Okay.
recently, though. And this was of an old man, and he buys a kettlebell. Have you seen this? He
I saw
buys a
that on your page.
kettlebell. Yeah, I shared it last night, and I thought it was brilliant. But then I did think of the marketing side, and I don't know which company used it. But this old man is if you not don't know what we're referring to, he's squatting and then like pushing out a kettlebell. It's quite a heavy kettlebell by the looks of it, and he's struggling, and he's got neighbours sort of looking at him, thinking, "Is he okay?" And it turns out by the end of the advert, it's so that he can pick his granddaughter up and hold her out so she can put the star on the tree, which is a beautiful advert, right? Yeah. But it does make me think that is brilliant if you are a fitness company that's trying to promote fitness equipment. Here, buy a kettlebell, you'll be able to help your granddaughter put a star on the tree. Yeah. So even if it's a nice message, you are right. Yeah. It's so heavily marketed. And I think with that comes this pressure. Like you just said perfectly, they want to sell you the perfect Christmas. Every Christmas has got to outdo the last one. And it's quite mad when you think about it. Like so much stress for one day that happens every single year.
Yeah, yeah. And also I think, you know, for me, it's like my background's Indian. So whenever we have like a festival, there's some sort of religious connotation. Yeah. So for me, when I see people do Christmas, I'm like, you know, when I was younger, especially, I was like, well, isn't that the birth of Jesus Christ? So do you not go to church and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when people now say you're ready for Christmas, they mean, are you doing loads of shopping and driving yourself crazy? Have you got all the food in? Are you going to gorge yourself on Christmas Day?
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's something there to be said about losing the meaning. I mean, I happened to say, I think it was only last year to someone, you know, someone said, are you ready for Christmas? And I said, you know what, like, we don't really do presents because, you know, consumption and everyone's got everything, but there's a lot of grown-ups in our family. So people will buy what they want. And she looked at me, Callum, like I said I'd ate babies for breakfast or something. She was like, what? You don't do any presents? She was absolutely horrified. I was like, no, we don't go. We don't want each other to go to someone's house and like, I bought you this present, so you've got to buy me a present back, which will probably get returned or we don't like it. Like the obligation. I wouldn't want to put that pressure on someone. Yeah, I just wouldn't. Martin Lewis, you know, the money saving expert?
Yeah.
He did a really good chat on it, and I think he's still got a video on YouTube of it. And he was saying that is that sort of consumption side of Christmas we've got to stop. Because what does it mean? So say, Callum, I bought you a present for Christmas because it's Christmas, I'm going to buy you a present. So I buy you, I don't know, something expensive like a Joe Malone candle. Now you're going to think, but you bought me a present, but we don't know what we bought each other.
Yeah.
So I buy you a Joe Malone candle, but you've bought me like a jigsaw puzzle. And I'm like, well, actually, I gave him a really expensive present. He's just given me this. And then what are we saying? You know?
Me and my wife have literally just done this, but we joke about it, like, but it is a classic example. I've been asking for this PlayStation 5 since it came out, right? But, you know, it's expensive. Anyway, after pushing and pushing, I know that it's sat at my mother-in-law's house right now waiting for me on Christmas Day, right?
Okay.
But she wanted a Nintendo Switch. And even though we're joking, there was an element of that because I know that's cost nearly £500. Well, this Nintendo Switch is nearly £400. She's like, well, you're going to have to get me something else because I've spent this. And even though we're joking, we're not though, are we? Because if I don't, I'm going to get grief, whether it's a playful way or not. So you're right. Even if it's not as serious as it is, we're trying to outdo each other and trying to outspend and who spent more, or even quantity. Well, I got you 10 presents, you only got me 6.
Yes. Yeah.
Despite the value of those 6 presents.
Oh yeah. And then that's not why we should be giving presents. Should be just, we're giving you something nice. I saw this and I thought of you and I wanted to give you it. When I was younger, I used to work at a department store in my hometown. And so the 2 weeks, the run up to Christmas was heaving busy. And then literally the day after Boxing Day, the refund queue was out of the door. And we were refunding everything we'd just sold someone the week before. So if someone had received a present, they wanted to change it, they wanted to return it for vouchers, or credit note. So our refund tills were busier than any other tills we were taking. And it used to just I used to think, well, I was here last week and I sold someone that I know, and they took the time in that rush to buy you that present. You've now brought it back because you don't like it and you want credit vouchers to get something else. It was like this. It was like just felt like a hamster wheel we were on.
It's a novelty, isn't it? And I know it's not the same, but it is the same sense that gyms in January, right? My busiest time of the year is January. And it's that novelty of, right, Christmas is out of the way, let's work on myself. And not so much in my gym that I have now, because it's all personal training, but when I worked in conventional gyms, let's say, we had a sign-up book, right? And it was like a big A4 book. And in January, so every time someone joined, you'd write their name. In January, it was about 5 pages front and back. God's honest truth, it was heaving. And the amount of people who'd come and cancel their membership, and just like you just said, I'm like, I signed you up only a month ago.
Yeah.
It's the novelty, isn't it? Just like Christmas. It's all part of this. And it happens every year. We get caught in this, like you said, hamster wheel with Christmas. It's like a feast and famine cycle. We need to do this, now we need to do that. And then Easter comes. But we're digressing a bit. Jen, you are a solution-focused psychotherapist and an author as well, which we'll get into. So obviously, because people have probably just joined in or listening to this, and we've just waffled on about Christmas, we've got going already, and people are thinking, what are we even talking about here, guys? The reason I've got Jen on, she is a solution-focused psychotherapist. She's a mental health therapist, and we are talking about mental health over the Christmas. So we were in context. To be fair, we were talking about hamster wheels and stuff. We're on there. So help me explain that to me, Jim. What does a solution-focused psychotherapist do? I know what a psychotherapist is, but what does a solution focus mean?
So the solution focus bit means that I'm a therapist that doesn't want to hear your problems.
Brilliant.
I'm all about where you are now and where you want to be going forward. I strongly believe you do not have to start picking apart your problems of the past to work out where you are now and where you want to go, because the brain doesn't work that way. So my clients come to me because they either don't know the problem, or they're sick to death of the problem, or they don't want to talk about the problem. So I'm trying to educate people now to say, do not put off therapy if you think you're going to have to dig into your past, if you don't want to. There is a place for it if that's what you want to do. I don't do it. So I'm very clear when I meet clients to say, are you aware I'm not going to talk about your past? I don't even need to know the problem, because I know how the brain works, and the brain doesn't need to start picking apart that problem for you to feel better as well. If you want to feel better and you want to feel better fairly quickly, my clients aren't with me for years and years. When you hear people are in years of therapy and counseling. So I don't do that. The way that differs is if you see a counselor, a traditional type of counselor, you will go to a counselor, and I kind of call them like they're kind of a nodding along therapist. They will nod along to what you want to talk about, and they'll say, and what do you think about that? I'm a therapist that I ask you a question and I expect an answer. So I direct the conversation, and I direct it more into a positive. So it's a blend of coaching but psychotherapy as well. So and like I said, that's how the brain works. The brain doesn't need to go over your problems. If you're sick to death of the problem and you want to feel better, then you need to find a solution-focused therapist.
We literally just had someone comment following up on what you said, Michelle. What did she just put? Which I thought this was quite profound, which is you can't change the past, but you can map out your future. I like that.
That's right. Perfect. Exactly right, Michelle. That's it. That's exactly. You can't change your past. So because I'm solution focused, it doesn't mean I'm problem phobic.
Yeah.
So what we do is we get to a place where we accept the past. That happened for sure. It happened and it's got its place, but it's in the past now. We cannot change that route that it took. But like Michelle said, we can now map out your future. Now, you can either take that past and it can dictate your future, or you can say, you know what, I survived that, and now I'm going to do this. And it gives you character, and that's who you are. That's what resilience is. If you're listening to this right now, you've survived. So either you can take your past and let it dictate your future, or you can take control yourself. So that's what I do. So yeah, Michelle, I'm going to nick that as well. So I'm going to start writing that down on things. Yeah, it's perfect. Perfectly described.
So you have lectured at the University of Edinburgh, which is one of the universities that my daughter is looking at. She's just gone into sixth form. She's an A-star student. It's not from me, but she and so she does sing very highly of it. And you've lectured there. But how did you, before you got to that, what got you into this? What made you think, do you know what, that this is the psychology and the therapy, that's what I want to go? Was this something for you, or was it something that you just always kind of wanted to do?
Always wanted to do, maybe, but my previous career to this, I was an optician. Okay, bear with me here, there's a curve. So when you're an optician, obviously you talk to a lot of people, and you talk about their general health and their medication. And when you look inside their eyes, sometimes you can say to people, oh, I think you should have a blood test, a blood pressure check. Or I think, you're suspecting diabetes because the blood vessels at the back of your eye tell you a lot. And often you'd hear people say, oh, you know what, I bet my blood pressure's high. I'm really stressed. I've been stressed for years. And they'd have this story in stress that has now led to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, general health problems. But then you'd meet other people, Callum, who were really well, and you used to meet 60, 70-year-olds, and you had to ask about medication. They'd say, no, I'm not on any medication. But they also had a story in stress. You get talking to people, and they've also got a story in stress. And I was fascinated. I was like, well, what have you got that this person hasn't got? So I think we should be studying these people who are managing their stress and are getting on with their life and have got some sort of resilience. So when I realized that, I thought, and I was just getting sick of seeing ill people because of stress. Stress was often the common denominator, stress and anxiety or depression. Once I saw an 18-year-old that had been prescribed antidepressants. I was like, well, that's no coping mechanism at 18 and no other support. So I wanted to do something in therapy and counseling. And when I started looking at all the different types, I knew counseling wasn't for me. And even my husband said, he goes, you know what, you're just going to listen to people's problems. You're going to come back and cry because you're just going to absorb people's problems. And I thought there must be a better way, to show people resilience. And I strongly believe that I've got a lot of resilience. And people used to say to me, oh, how do you do it, Jen? How do you manage? You're really good at coping. And I might have been struggling inside, but I was like determined to push forward.
Yeah.
And then I found solution-focused work, and I thought that is right up my street as well. So when I realized, there's a term for the way I think and feel and the way I want to do things. So I retrained as a psychotherapist, and now I do this. And I love it. I love it because I don't have to listen to people's problems, and I can create change in people's lives.
Yeah.
I've brought people's blood pressure down, because we're managing their stress. I'm seeing someone at the moment in a very high stressful job, and just within a couple of sessions, he's like, oh, I'm really relaxing. This is really feeling good. And yeah, he knows his problem. He's an intelligent man. He knows his problems. He goes, I've got a really stressful job. That's all it is. He goes, I've got a great life. I've got a lovely wife and family. I've had a pretty good childhood, no complaints. But I'm just in this stressful job, and I'm just now, the anxiety is getting so much. I can't do presentations. I'm not interviewing people well. I can't have meetings. I need to get a handle on this, and I need to get a handle on it quick. So he goes, I don't know what problems I would talk about. He goes, when he listened to my podcast, and he said, yeah, that's exactly what I need.
And do you think, like I personally believe that anxiety is always a secondary I guess condition. Like it's always, I don't tend to feel like anxiety just comes from nowhere. I feel like anxiety always tends to accompany something, and as almost a secondary problem, whether it be health related or whether it be, like you said, stress related. Like I don't tend to feel just someone's fine one day and it's like, oh, I now have anxiety. Like something's triggered that, hasn't it?
It builds up. So early signs of anxiety are, I'm a bit of a worrier. I'm starting to overthink negatively. I'm quite pessimistic about things. I don't see the good side of things so much. So it is, and same with depression, same with anger management issues. No one wakes up one morning with clinical depression. there's a slow start. It starts with low mood, low motivation, procrastination. But if it starts to take over your life, that's when you need to do something about it. So it is a build-up, and it's a response to fear. So it's a fear response. So if you do want to get to the root cause of something, your root cause is fear. You're scared of something. You're scared of failure, disappointment, abandonment, something. That is the base root cause. And if you're scared of something, you're going to go into fight or flight or freeze. So fight is anger, flight is anxiety, and freeze is depression. So depression and anxiety, these are big words. But if we turn them into fight or flight or freeze, maybe that's a bit more palatable, but it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we all hear about the fight and flight response, but I've never heard it with freeze added in as well. And I guess that makes more sense. Like, I don't think it's one or the other. I don't think it's. Yeah. I think saying fight or flight is a bit more dated now, because I don't think you truly either go fighting or run away. I think
that's right.
Adding the freeze sometimes, and you said the word overwhelm before, and I would definitely say, doing my own soul searching, if I could ask what is triggering my anxiety, I would say 80 to 90% of the time it's always overwhelm. It's always too much that I can control. And I think people struggle a lot this time of the year because, as we mentioned earlier on in the show, is that right now there's so much pressure from marketers and from family members and people. You said perfectly at the start of this, that one question, are you all ready for Christmas? It's like you have to be ready. Like there's a platform that people, or a pedestal that people expect you to be on to be ready for Christmas. And if you're not, or like you said before, when you're judged as being a Scrooge if you're not on this pedestal or not celebrating in the same way. So I definitely think overwhelm, for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this would be nodding away, going, "Yeah, that's my main trigger." My wife did become a qualified counsellor, but like you mentioned before, very quickly, it almost sounds very parallel to you and your husband. I pushed her forward because I thought you'd be brilliant at this. She's already got a psychology degree, and I thought, why not? And she did it, but very quickly she was like, "This ain't for me." I don't know if, and very. I think, like what you said, she was like absorbing it all like a sponge, and it was. I think she's the kind of person that's like, well, I can't absorb all that, and I think you have to be a certain type of person.
Yeah.
What then sort of drove you into actually lecturing them? Because that's a whole different thing, lecturing, talking in a room full of people. I think that's a big jump up, I think, from just simply becoming a therapist. Right now I'm going to, teach people. I know it's not what you might be doing now, but how did that jump up happen? What made you go, okay?
So it's a great question. Well, at the start of my business, I used to do talks at networking groups. And very quickly, obviously, I think it was the content of my talk. People started saying to me, you need to come into our company and do that talk. You need to come into our business and do that talk. So my talk is based on educating you in how the brain works. This is how your brain works when you go into fight or flight or freeze. This is where depression and anxiety and anger come from. And this is what you can do about it. So part of my solution focus sessions are teaching you how your brain works. You are not broken. It's all our brains work majority of the time in the same way. We can all go into that fight or flight or freeze. We have a primitive part of our brain, and then we have an intellectual part of our brain. We've all got them. And how they work together, sometimes we can all be a little bit different. But when we all have the fear response, it acts the same. And that's going back to when I said, I met people that were very well and they had a stressful life, but they weren't having that fear response. So because I give a lot of information about how the brain works, that was proving really fascinating for people. So there's a lot of people out there, therapists included, that, are giving talks on anxiety and depression. There's a lot of mental health awareness, but no one's giving solutions and no one's explaining this to you. So I say to people, look, fight or flight or freeze. If you've ever felt anxious, angry, or depressed, congratulations, your brain's working just fine. You've just gone into survival mode. But you know intellectually that's not serving you right now. So you need to do something about it, and this is how you do it. So I think the amount of information I give in my talks, which is why I wrote a book and why I've got a podcast, I think if people knew this stuff, they would understand themselves better, and that is one way to have mental health awareness. And that's the best way to say, yeah, this is what we're going to do about it. We can help each other. I can see my friend going into fight or flight or freeze. I think I know how I can help them. So that's where. And then someone from the university had been at one of my talks at a networking group, and they asked me to come in and lecture because they said that's valuable to our students. That's how it happened.
That's amazing. And it almost if you were scouted for something that is just a light bulb moment for you. It's not same as what I say, what I do. It's like we're not. I'm. A lot of people will laugh when I say this. I'm quite modest. People will roll their eyes and go, "Yeah, whatever." But I am. I like to almost don't psychoanalyze me now, Jim. But I almost like to create this character. And even in my gym, I call myself the Messiah. I'm not, right? But I almost do. It's almost this ego that I present, and I know what it is. I know it's a cover-up of insecurity, and I know full well it is. But it's also a way that I handle things. And I think that I don't think you should ever don't believe your own hype, so to speak. And I kind of say, look, I'm not reinventing the wheel here, guys. I'm just telling you what you already know. But like you said, I'm helping you find a solution. We've already identified the problem. Do you think, Jin, because this is my take on it, I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder at 27, right? And you go in to your GP, they prescribe you this, maybe sertraline, and I've got no issues with antidepressants, but it seems to be, and this kind of creates, I think this paints anxiety almost as I'm not saying it's not an actual medical condition, but I personally believe it's a state that your body and your mind are in. And I also believe it can get out of it, almost as if it's temporary. But I feel like the medical sort of terminology and the words used and on Warning TV and stuff seems to be right. I have anxiety now, and that's it. That's me done. That's now going to be my excuse for everything. It's like, no, I can't because I struggle with my anxiety. And I'm not downplaying it. I know how anxiety is, but I almost want to shake people and go, yep, for now, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this word anxiety and how it's been? I don't want to say overused because obviously it's a horrible thing to experience. But like you just said, if you've experienced anxiety or depression at least once, that shows that your brain is doing its job. That's your body's defense mechanism.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like I have a lot of people that I work with, and it's always, I don't want to say cop out. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, but I'm a bit like
you're in a safe space. You're in a safe space.
Yeah, I'm trying, but I'm a bit like yourself. I'm kind of my approach is, come on, it's not that I don't have compassion, but I'm trying to motivate you. And if I help enable this behavior or this mindset that you're adopting, it's not going to help anyone. And I do feel like people kind of go, oh, my anxiety's bad at the minute. So, well, no, you're letting that define you. You're allowing that to be the case. So what are your thoughts on that for people who might be listening to this now and hearing us talk about anxiety? Like, think, no, my anxiety is so bad at the minute, I don't want to leave my house. It might be to do with, you said at the start, the cost of living crisis is really getting people might not be able to afford presents, or they might have lost family members and stuff. What is sort of advice to people who might be listening to this now with that sort of situation?
Well, first of all, I'm the same as you. I've got no problem with medication at all. GPs have got 5 minutes to consult you, so they're going to write you a prescription and send you on your way. So it's time for us to take control of our own health, and you do that with your physical fitness side as well. You have to take responsibility. You're going to have to lift the kettlebell. Callum will show you, but you're going to have to actually do it. That's the only way to create resilience. But you used a really good word there, enabling. So are you almost enabling yourself? So if you give yourself a label that I've got anxiety, so I can't do that. Well, that's fine if you're happy with that. If you're happy not going out of the house because you've got anxiety, not a problem. But if you've got kids to look after, that's not helpful. If you want to go further in life, that's not helpful. So anxiety is temporary. And if you want to do something about it, you can come out of it. I was talking to someone, a HR professional, actually. She said she had an issue with someone she was working with. They were in the hospitality industry. And the manager had come to her and they said, look, so we've just employed this new young member of staff, but they've said they've got so much anxiety that they can't answer the phone. So what can I do about that? And she said, the manager was saying, well, maybe I could give him a job in the back office and blah, blah, blah. And the HR manager was so pleased, said this. She goes, no, that's a disciplinary issue. It's a minimum requirement. If you need to work in the hotel, you will be answering the phone. If you have so much anxiety that you can't answer the phone, this is not the job for you. So this is now someone with anxiety. So using it as an excuse, well, I can't answer the phone, but that means you're now limiting your options of where you're going to work. So it is going to come back and bite you in some way. So you've got to be really strong and have the mindset. And I think it sounds like your community has this, to say that, yeah, I want to do something about it. So does it come into a bit of a pity party? I want to say it, so I don't know if that's going to go down well with people, but you can have anxiety because you've had lots going on, and we've all got lots going on. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be nervous. Yeah. Okay. You're allowed to be a little bit frustrated. These are normal human emotions that make us human, right? But if you've got so much anxiety that it's now limiting your quality of life, it's such a shame that, we can do something about that. That's what I want to say to people. There's solutions to that. Do you want more? Do you want to be able to have that job or any job that you want, and your anxiety is not going to hold you back? So if your anxiety is starting to hold you back from something, that's not healthy. But you're allowed to be a little bit nervous. You're allowed to have a low mood some days. Some days I'm like, oh, but that's not depression. So I think you've got to be really careful with those labels to say, yeah, I've got anxiety as well. We've all got anxiety. I've got anxiety. It's just I know how to control it as well. I just don't feel it.
So we're talking about solution-based psychotherapy here.
Yeah.
So if we've identified what the anxiety is, or that it's, or a bit similar to what I said, that I personally believe it's a secondary, it's your brain's response to an external or an underlying situation, how then, what tips do you have to, okay, let's say someone's listening and go, right, I hear you guys, how do I start? Because sometimes you can be so at the bottom of the pit with anxiety, or so the weight of anxiety, almost, I like to use analogies, right? And almost like you're trapped at the bottom of a well and the well's just closing in on you and you almost find no way of getting out. What would be the first sort of rung of a ladder that you would step on? What's the turning point where you can start going the other way and climbing yourself out of that situation?
That's exactly it. It's the first rung, isn't it? You take it in small steps. Yeah. So sometimes the reason people feel they can't change is because that change looks too big. So you're looking at the top of the well and you can see the exit, but it's so far away that it makes you freeze. Literally, you're like, I'll never make it up there. But can you take that first step? So that's how we start. So in solution focused sessions, we start with the question. If you were on a session now, Callum, say, oh, hi, Callum, lovely to see you. Tell me what's been good about your week this week. What's been good? Even if it's small. So if you're overwhelmed with anxiety, if you tell me you had a lovely cup of tea and you saw a cute dog, I'd say, great, fantastic. What else has been good? Because that fight or flight or freeze part of your brain is negative. So I'm not going to talk about negatives. If you want to get into the intellectual brain, it's generally quite positive. And by positive, I don't mean happy and rainbows and unicorns. I mean it's objective and rational. Yeah. So if you want to get objective and rational, first of all, tell me what's been good about your week.
It's built to create solutions, isn't it? I imagine, is it? So it doesn't have any knowledge of what's bad or good. It doesn't understand the construct of it. It's just
everything in the primitive negative part of your brain is bad. Everything is bad, and it's catastrophically bad. So if you can just make some inroads to get into the intellectual part of the brain, from that part of your brain, you can analyze your problems if you want to. But let's get you there first. So we start with what's been good about your week. The next thing I would say is, so just much like the rungs of a ladder. So if we use a happiness scale from 10 to 0, what number would you be now? And someone might say, well, I'm number 6. I say, okay, great. So if you woke up tomorrow morning and you were a number 7, notice I didn't say 10. I'm not jumping to the top of the well. I'm just going up one rung. Go up one rung on that ladder. Don't worry about how that happens. Let's say I've got a magic wand and I made you a number 7 tomorrow. What does that look like? What would you do? Paint that picture for me. Just in small ways, like, would you'd go to one of Callum's sessions, you'd be picking up some weights, you'd feel good. So now we're directing your mind to what you want, not what you don't want. So if we talk about anxiety and what the triggers are, we're still thinking about that, even if we don't want it. So the brain's not like an engine. So everyone thinks you need to get to the root cause and get in there and fix it and then come out. Yeah, that works for an engine. But your brain is completely different. It's not an engine. For example, if I said to you now, Callum, don't think about a green bus. What are you thinking about? A green bus, right? Because your brain doesn't hear the don't bit in front.
Yeah.
So people will say to me, well, I don't want to feel anxious. My response to that is, well, what do you want to feel instead? What do you want to feel instead? If you woke up tomorrow feeling a bit better, would you be a bit calmer? Would you be a bit more confident? And what does that look like? Paint me the picture. So it's about trying to direct your mind to what you want, not what you don't want. And it's hard. It's not easy. If you're absolutely consumed with anxiety, it's really, really difficult. But it's a step in the right direction rather than sitting there examining your anxiety and trying to pick that apart. Because that your brain just doesn't work like that. If you think you're going to find the solution by wallowing in the anxiety and trying to find what the problem is and trying to fix that, because often, people will say to me, well, the problem is I've got a really stressful job and I've got, the kids are driving me crazy. So what are you going to do? Are you going to resign and abandon your kids? That's not a solution. So it's about thinking, how can I cope with my stressful job? And what ideas can I come up with to have a better relationship with my children? And those ideas, they come from your intelligent brain. So my job is to get you there first. And from that part of your brain, you have all the solutions. So I don't tell people what to do, and we don't sit and work out a solution. All I need to do is to get you into that part of your brain, and you will come up with your own ideas and solutions.
And it's almost quite frustrating. One of my members, she's actually part of my team. She's my moderator in my group. It went a bit quiet, as it does at this time of the year. And she sort of posted and said, look, I hope everything's not gone quiet and hope people are still motivated. And the amount of comments in response, I'm just not in a good place, or anxiety, or this, I've got a lot of, completely understandable. But it's also frustrating because it's like, you're coming to me with your problems, but like you said, what are you... Oh, okay then. So should we just walk away? It's almost like I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
But I want solutions, not problems. Yeah. Like you've acknowledged it. I'm having a lot going on. Okay, but do something about it then. I know that's easier said than done, but I guess
it is. Yeah, I don't mean to sound, facetious. Exactly that. You've got to acknowledge the problem. So I've got a problem. I'm very overwhelmed right now. Right. How can we break that down? What can we do to help you? Are we going to delegate here? Are we going to... So often what we find is, like, if you feel out of control in one part of your life, you're going to feel out of control in other parts of your life. So the problem often isn't that overwhelm. So say you're feeling overwhelmed about all the Christmas, preparations. What you'll find is that actually isn't the problem. That's just a symptom. Your problem is you've not been looking after yourself, maybe health-wise.
Yeah.
And now you're getting anxious. You're going to have loads of people around Christmas and you can't fit into a dress. That's really the problem. So examining the problem isn't necessarily helpful. We've got to say, well, what do we need to do to help you feel better? We need to work on self-esteem, a bit more self-awareness, a bit more confidence. To say, yeah, but I am going to do it. But this time next year, I'm going to fit into the best dress ever. If that's what you want, we need to focus going forward rather than back. So I'm not saying it's easy. And that's why the sessions I have, it's a course of sessions. And not just one session, I'm going to fix you, and asking these questions now will help you. Yeah. There's a process to it as well. But once you understand how the brain works, so a lot of people talk about, gratitude journals and thinking positively, but no one tells you why. The reason why is because we need to get you into that part of the brain. That doesn't mean all your problems disappear. But what it means is you're going to cope and manage better with your problems. So I see people with chronic illness, sometimes terminal illness, looking after sick family relatives, financial situations. They're not going to change overnight. A lot of them are, those situations, they're not going to get better. Because obviously if they got better, yeah, you'd feel a lot better. What we work on then is, how would you know you're coping and managing? What would show you that you're coping with that situation? Yeah. So I saw a lady once with a chronic illness, and just everything was just doom and gloom. She's like, this is awful. Everything's awful. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I've just been diagnosed with this. It's awful. And after a few sessions, she's saying, you know what I'm doing? Okay, I know how to manage this now. I know that I can, if I go swimming one day, maybe the next day I need to rest, Jen. The solutions just started to come to her. But when I first saw her, she goes, she was so angry that she couldn't go swimming every single day. So there was no acceptance around now she's got this, but she's so much happier now because she says, I swim one day and then the next day, you know what, I do my knitting. I love that. I love doing my knitting. And then I'm going to swim the following day. So it's about finding acceptance around a lot of our stressful situations. So, I'm really not saying that all your problems disappear if you think positively. It's about coping and managing.
I think that's the problem with the law of attraction and stuff is the concept from a psychological standpoint makes complete sense as a placebo. I think the problem with it is with Rhonda Byrne and stuff is where there's almost a flip side of it that only it wouldn't make sense. So, for example, the law of attraction, of course, for anyone who listening who doesn't understand it, it's this idea that thoughts become feelings, right? If you think something, you will attract it. The problem I have with that is the universe is an extremely, extremely. I'm someone who's very into cosmology and physics, right? And quantum mechanics and stuff. We won't go into that. But the point is, I know how big the universe is. So how arrogant can someone be to really believe that the universe is this massive thing that we are an irrelevant speck of is giving you anything? But on the flip side, you talked about the gratitude journal, and I really want to get onto gratitude shortly because that's my thing, and that's something I've really, really power. But I know why, and I think you touched on before. I did. I don't know if you've heard of Paul Moore, but that's who I've worked with a lot in the past. And Paul Moore it's changed my life. And he's followed work from Byron Katie, and it's all out there. It's all and it's all the same message. Bob Proctor, and it's this idea that your thoughts really are. I think people. They want to put hocus pocus on it, but the reality is if your thoughts are so negative, naturally your body is going to respond, and you're going to start becoming unwell. You're going to start becoming under this thing we call depression, anxiety. It's not a good state for your body to be in. Now, I don't personally believe, right, if I just think positive, then everything's going to... Absolutely not. But likewise, I don't, turn around because if you do believe that, and like in karma and stuff, it always has an ugly flip side that people will believe this one part, but then if it's like karma's going to get that person. but from that other person's perspective, their karma, they don't understand what that karma is. That's karma to you. So karma is a confusing thing, because it's like, well, karma is subjective. It's not a universal thing. But so that's what I wanted to bring up. Wanted to ask you, Jin, about not just law of attraction, but when I work with Paul Moore, what I do now, his teachings to me when I've done his courses was basically, to shorten this up, is this idea that you have to plan your feelings. Don't leave your feelings to chance, because it's almost like you could just walk into any kind of state of mind. And people find that idea quite bizarre. What do you mean, plan my feelings? I can't plan my feelings. You can. And I was a bit skeptical of it, and I was under stress of business and stuff. And all I did from a journal is started a day. Today I plan to feel right.
Yeah.
And then I'd write, and I still do this sometimes when I remember, but I'm quite a sucker for continuity. But I do understand the concept of how it works and the power behind it. I want to feel this way, right? Then I write down what barriers might be. Okay, what would I'm already planning what could happen in my day to put me in a bad mood and stop me from being the way I want to feel.
Good.
And then the third one is, okay, what something I can look forward to today. And you mentioned about the before, just starting off small, just little things. He gave me this thing to do called a happiness buffet, and I've got my online members to do the same thing. Write down a list of every single thing that makes you feel happy, no matter how small. It could be as small as a cup of coffee in the morning. It could be something really big, But if when you get going, you've got a list of 20 things. I'm going to have an off day today. Okay, what's something you can do that day to look forward to by the end of the day? So no matter what kind of bad day you have, at least I can go home and look forward to, for some people, it might be a glass of wine at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you can hold on to that. So his work has changed my life, and it's opened my eyes up to anxiety a lot compared to where I was 5 years ago, and I thought, no, this is a disorder. It's created. It's one of my GP actually used the term, it's blueprinted in your brain now. That's it. God's honest truth, that was actually. Don't get me started on GPs, but I never forget that. So I believed that. I'm like, oh, this is it. It's a defect.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
But now, after doing all this work, now I know, no, it's not. I hate to say this, and I know you said this before, because sometimes it's what people don't want to hear. People don't like the idea that, they're responsible for their own feelings and their own state of mind. People hate that. But even if people are making you feel miserable, or your husband's driving you crazy, or anything like that, these external factors, the government's an easy one to blame, right? But the reality is, you're choosing how those things are affecting you. The one thing you can control is your own emotions and your own response. So I just wanted to add on to that, Jim, because you said a lot of things there that I was nodding away thinking, that's exactly what I'm doing right now, and what I'm getting. You mentioned a gratitude journal. I've got my online group, week 1. First thing I did, get a gratitude journal, because I believe gratitude is the most powerful, raw way to, we mentioned a turning point before, the bottom rung of a ladder. If you're in the absolute pit of despair, you're having the worst day ever, just one little thing that you're grateful for can be the quickest way to flick that switch and start going the other way. I think when you're truly grateful of something, because I believe when you're actually grateful for something, it's impossible to be negative. It's impossible. You can't do it at the same time. I can't go, I'm so grateful to be able to have fluid here and be able to have a drink. Oh, but the world's shit. I can't do it.
Yes,
I can't do two things at once.
Yeah, you can't have the two thoughts at the same time. So the problem with the law of attraction is it doesn't tell you the science behind it. So it's just talking about magicking things up, and it's just it's passing the buck to the universe and letting the universe get on with it. So once you understand how the brain works, you know why gratitude works. It's called the reticular activating system in the brain. You might have heard of it. It's your subconscious. Has this ever happened to you? You decide you really want to buy a red car, for example. You really want a red car, really fancy it, right? Next car's going to be a red car. You go out the next day and all you see is red cars. Red cars didn't come out that day to annoy you. They've always been there. It's just that now, because you're focused on red cars, you see red cars everywhere. So again, that's how the brain works. The reticular activating system is activating what you are thinking about. So if you are thinking about, oh, it's a really bad day and the government's really horrible, guess what? That's what you're going to see. But if you start focusing on, you know what, I'm doing all right here. I feel quite good. I've got some water next to me. And you know what? I'm going to listen to Callum's podcast. I think, and I'd really like to focus on that. And I'd really like a little bit of that attitude. You know what? You're going to hear Callum's podcast and you're going to hear more. You're going to start finding other podcasts. You're going to find other things you can do, other things you can drink. Going back to your mind, you've got to direct your mind to what you want. The reason it doesn't feel like you can control your thoughts is because when you're in fight or flight or freeze, that part of the brain has got control of you. You are out of control at that point. So if you've got loads of anxiety, if you're in depression, you are out of control. That survival part of your brain has taken you over. But if you can get into your intelligent brain, the intellectual brain, the left prefrontal cortex, that is the part of the brain where you control your thoughts. You decide what you want to think about. And you can say, well, I can think about it's going to be a bad day. But no, you know what? I'm going to think about it's going to be a good day. And this is neuroscience. This is neuroplasticity. That's why we have known for quite a few decades now, no one has a blueprint in their brain. No one is hardwired. I met a lady once. She was in her 70s. I talked to her about neuroplasticity, how you can change the way you think. She burst into tears. And I was like, oh, what's happened? And she said when she was 20, a psychiatrist had told her she was hardwired for depression. And she said, Gin, you're telling me now I can change the way I think? I went, yes, I am. It's just as we get older, we get lazier. That's all. It doesn't change with age. We get lazy as we get older because we've got old neural pathways. You can create a new neural pathway right now if you want to. Sports professionals do it all the time. Usain Bolt does not imagine and visualize coming second in a race. Muhammad Ali, I'm showing my age now. Muhammad Ali used to say, I am the greatest. Now, I've heard from professional boxers, technically he was a good boxer. He wasn't the best. But combine good boxing with that mindset, that's magic. So you can control your thoughts in your intellectual brain, and that's why I want to get you there. But I do appreciate in your primitive brain, you've lost control. It doesn't feel like you can control your thoughts. That's why people find it hard when they say, no, I can't control my thoughts, because you're consumed with so much anxiety. It's taken you over until you feel safe again. Until you've come out of survival mode, you're not going to feel you can control your thoughts. But if you can control your thoughts, get that reticular activating system going, you are going to see things in your environment. So if you start thinking positively, you know what? I am visualizing law of attraction, bring it to me. I am visualizing doing something really good. I don't know, earning lots more money. That's the end goal. Your subconscious will work backwards from there when it goes into something called the default mode network, when we relax or when we go on a run and we just let our mind wander. It will work backwards from there to say, well, what's the first step? There we go again, first steps. What's the first step to earning more money? It might be, you know what, I'm going to look for another job. I wonder if there's a promotion going at my work. So you can have an end goal. You can look at the top of the well, but your subconscious will help you work from the bottom. If you're focused at the top of the well, you'll get there. But you've got to take the first step to get out of it is to understand that you've got to get out of your primitive part of your brain where you have lost control to say, right, I need to control my thoughts. I need to control my thoughts to the top of the well, and I will. So I can really appreciate when people don't understand that you can control your thoughts, because they naturally will feel their thoughts are controlling them. The anxiety is controlling them. The depression is controlling them right now. It's got hold of you because what it's done is the fear factor. It's seen a polar bear. That's the metaphor I use for any type of fear. It's seen a polar bear and it's not going to let go until the polar bear's gone away. That's how I see it.
I was trying to look when you said something about the subconscious brain. I was trying to look for something that was on this Bob Proctor seminar from the 80s that's been remastered, because he made a good way of he said what you've just been saying there, Jim, but no one can visualize it. No one can visualize I can, because I understand exactly what you're saying. But for people listening, they're like, she's saying stuff about articulate brain, and I don't understand. He said no one could visualize it, so someone drew a picture of it and he put it on the board, and it was really good. And it was the small circle at the top with little sticks hanging out. That was the conscious brain, and then the little sticks were the sensory faculties. Okay, the ones that we know, obviously sight, touch. These are how we take in information, and then below it was a big circle, and that was the subconscious brain. And that is what we act on. We act on raw subconscious. So in order to act on something or put our body or spiritually or whatever you want to take it into action, we have to change the way we're taking in information and how that drips into the big circle. Right. So I was trying to look for it to share it on video, but I couldn't find it. But it was a little circle and then a big circle at the bottom. And it was basically conscious mind, subconscious mind. But it takes time. It can't happen overnight. And you probably agree with this, Jim, because I know you've had sessions with people and it's probably took you a long time. You can't just go, right, I'm fixed. You know, I get what you're saying. Even if that's true, even if what you've said today is sinking in people, and I've had comments from people saying, I'm taking a lot from this. I've already had can I have the link to Jill's podcast after this? Yes, you can. I'll be plugging that in, don't worry. So you're obviously hitting home on some truths here. But I think that people are taking it in. They understand, like, right, I'm going to get to work. But the consistency's got to be there. You can't just know, because, like you said, subconsciously or hardwired. But I think you said before about the age thing. Habits plays a part as well. Yeah. Humans are habitual creatures, right? If we are designed, the older we get, and if we're programmed to believe certain things, it's very hard to be told that the sky's blue and then suddenly have someone tell you, no, the sky's green. No, even if it was true, it's not. Yeah. And even if it was true, you can't. No. There's almost a defense mechanism. How dare someone challenge something you? And again, it comes down to ego, I think, doesn't it? There's almost a little bit of ego.
Yeah, there's some hormones going on as well that will embed it. So if you've had an experience with a lot of emotion around it, that helps embed a neural pathway. But there's something called synaptic pruning. It's called pruning in science terms. So you can have an old pathway, or a pathway you've been going down many, many years. So if you imagine you're walking down, there's long grass, you're walking through long grass, and you've walked down this pathway so many times, you've flattened the grass, and you've gone through to the mud, you've created a pathway. But now we're deciding to think a different way, maybe a bit more positively, let's say. And so to go down that path through the long grass over here, it's quite hard. The first few steps, quite hard. But if you keep persisting at it, and that's the repetition, you'll start flattening the grass, won't you? And you'll start finding a pathway. Now, there's a very delicate point where, when you're standing at the junction, the brain is very lazy. It wants to take the path of least resistance. So it'll tempt you to go down the old path. But if you persist down the new path, you will keep going. And what happens is the brain is very clever. It will realize no oxygen's going down this path anymore, and it will literally prune it away. The grass will grow again and it will disappear. Because the brain's got to be efficient. And then from this pathway, you can create more new pathways if you want to. So it's called synaptic pruning. There's a really good article. I'll send it to you, Callum, to share. It's called Your Brain Has a Delete Button.
Right.
So if you want to delete those old blueprints, if that's what you want to call them, you can. But, and it's called pruning in science terms. We know this from neuroscience. So that's how we do it. So decide what path you want to take. You're standing at a fork in the road. Yes, it's hard going on a new pathway. It takes effort. You want to take the path of least resistance, but you've got to take that intelligent brain control. So having control of your thoughts to say, no, I want to go over here. This is what I want to do now. And I want to leave that behind. I want to change what I want to do. And repetition of that and having motivation to keep doing that is what will create that pathway.
Yeah, I think the knowledge is the first thing, but like you say, I think the repetition, it has to become action.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't just take in this information and go, yeah, light bulb moment. I get what you're saying. That's exactly right. Now go and put it into action.
That's right.
What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on writing stuff down then? Like getting your thoughts down? Because I'd like to believe, or what I teach definitely for my clients in person and online, is that if everything's trapped up here, it's very easy for everything to get, tangled up. But if you get your feelings down, write them down. It doesn't even have to be what I mentioned before about writing my feelings down. You mentioned writing the small wins earlier in the episode. On a Friday, get my online members in a group, call it Feel Good Friday. I want you to find 3 wins of the week, no matter how small. Try and find one that's related to one that's nutrition, one that might be exercise that you might have achieved. One is a personal thing, so it could be work, it could be family related, or something like that. Something that you made a family member proud, something like that. And then on a Monday, I'll go, right, Motivation Monday. Now I want 3 goals, 3 intentions you set for the week.
Yeah.
And what I encourage them to do that for, Jen, is because I want people to, and people will ignore it, but I want people to write it down, and then I'll hold them accountable for it on the Friday. Because I believe it's all right knowing, but if you put things down in writing or drawing or whatever it is, if you put things down on paper, that's no longer a thought that's just going through your head. You now have, physical. It's almost like you've paused. You've pressed pause on a movie, and you've got a screenshot. A screenshot. We're talking about technology at the start of this one. A screenshot of that thought. What are your thoughts on that, and what would your suggestion be for someone taking on board what you're saying? Okay, now go and act. Go and do some action.
Yeah. So this is what I talked about when I talked about that scale. But what's the first step towards that action? So even if you've done the first step towards that action, that's great. But because you're going in the right direction, remember, you're going on that neural pathway. That's what you're doing. So yes, the power of vision is phenomenal if you've got a vision. Now, what I will say is, so you've got an idea of what you want. You're setting a goal. Goal setting is great because it gives you the direction. This is what you want. But by holding people accountable, even if they haven't achieved that final thing, have they achieved something in that direction? So like say, I don't know, they wanted to go to the gym 3 times this week, but they only made it twice. That's still good. That's still good. You made it twice. That's great. Maybe next week we'll do 3. Who knows? But that, to me, that's more important. Now, the other thing is, I might give you a tip here. The brain loves images. So brain's much more image conscious. So it likes handwriting. So often if I get my clients to do exercise, I always get them to handwrite it. So if they're typing it in your group, that's one thing, but handwrite it to yourself. But maybe one week you could say, give me an image of that. So what's the image that comes to mind? Like take a screenshot of yourself, or maybe a picture online of what it is you want. So, you've seen a gorgeous dress, or whatever. I don't know. And so that's why people do vision boards. There's a really good TED talk called Draw Your Future by Patty Dabrowski, is it? And what she does is she's talking about that concept of vision boarding. That if you draw your future, that like, this is what I want. What are the images that come to mind? Confident in a presentation. What's the image that comes to mind? Don't just write confident in a presentation. What's the image? Maybe you need a picture of someone who's really someone you admire, who one of your mentors who, really presents really well. Have a picture of that. So the brain loves images. So maybe 1 week in your group, you could say, right, give me a picture of what your goal is, and write underneath it what you mean by it. But that's your idea of what the goal is. So the brain loves images more than writing, but it does need a goal. Now, I was talking about the solution focus formula, that when I ask you, what would you do tomorrow if you were feeling a little bit better? How would you know you're feeling better? And people will often say something like, I'll feel calmer. Let's say, well, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll know I'm feeling better because I'll feel a lot calmer. What I then do is I work on what I call a doing picture. So, well, what particular thing would show you that you're calmer? And they'll say to me, when I'm talking to the kids, I'll be a bit more present. Right, that's still not enough for me. I'm going to go, well, what are you actually doing? And they're like, well, just before they go to school, I might sort of sit with them and just help them with a bit of homework. And then because the subconscious loves detail, this is how detailed I'll get. What time are you doing that homework? Where are you doing that homework? Paint me the picture of what you're doing. That is the image. So now, working backwards from there, that picture signifies to you calmness. So just saying, I want to feel calm is one thing, but saying, and so I will repeat it back then to my clients. So if tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, you were sitting with your child at the kitchen dining table doing a little bit of homework before they went, you felt very present, would you be pleased? And hopefully they'd say, oh yeah, that would be lovely. Right, we're working with that image now. Your subconscious is working with that image, like the red car. Now, I'm not saying that that thing is going to happen, because your subconscious is much more powerful than that. Just like you were saying, that this is what we're feeding the senses. With that image, you're feeding your senses calmness, pride, joy, happiness. So what you'll feel is you'll take those feelings into other areas of your life. And yeah, that thing might happen, but lots of other things will happen if you're feeling calm and proud and happy as well. So images. So I will always work with what I call a doing picture. So images tend to be a bit more powerful.
And I think, just to add on that, I think if you're listening to this, guys, images doesn't necessarily mean you have to look at an image. It's just what you visualize. So, when I studied psychology, I quickly discovered that I encode information acoustically, and that still makes sense now, because like podcasts and stuff like what we're doing now, I'll take in more information. I certainly won't be semantics, or even visually. I don't read books very well. I don't have the attention span for it. But even with taking in the information acoustically, whether it be through music, whether it be through podcasts, audiobooks, I'm still creating an image in my head. It's not necessarily go look at pictures. I think what you mean is it's just having something to go off.
Yeah, that's what I'm creating. I'm creating that image. You create that image in your mind. So like I said, that image has come from someone. That's an example of what one of my clients said. I'll be sitting with my child and they're visualizing their dining room, their table. They're visualizing their child. So that's what that image is in their mind. And that's what we will work with. But that image is eliciting feelings. So when people say, oh, I want to be happy and I want to feel proud, that's not enough for your subconscious to take off. Describe a scenario where those feelings will come out, because the brain will love that image. Doesn't that image say a lot more? Even if it's in your mind, that image says a lot more than just saying, I'd like to feel calm and proud.
Yeah.
It's the image you're creating in your mind. So yeah, the brain loves visuals. And again, we're going back to the science of the brain, the neuroscience, the subconscious we're activating. The reticular activating system we're activating. Once you get the brain into the default mode network, it's going to start organizing and getting those disparate problems and starting to find the solution for them as well. Using your past experience. And even if your past experience has been negative, it has taught you something that will help you solve a problem in the future.
And I think people go, they run the other way when they fail on something. Like, I'm a big believer, like, failure is a positive. It doesn't feel like it at the time, but every failure is a learning experience for you to learn. Like, if you just went through life losing weight and getting, you'd just be able to click a finger and you'd be able to never gain weight and fit in the dresses you want, be able to lift dead heavy, be able to run, be able to keep up with your kids without, and have no problems whatsoever. Like, you'd never learn what it fit you. And again, about gratitude, you'd never appreciate or be grateful of things unless it's been the other way. So I would add on top of that, but you've added enough, Jim, because you're far more clued up on this stuff than me. But I'm just adding in my experiences from implementing the stuff you're talking about here, and how I've sort of twisted it to help me. Because I think that's what you're saying, isn't it? It's like you've got to find your own way, your own solution to your problems. This stuff that we're talking about here in this episode is universal, but everyone has to find their own way to benefit them to make that solution. And I'm just coming in with my experiences, topping on what you're saying and how I do things. I like the writing down, like the planning my feelings, write the gratitude journal. And, we're not going to talk about it. Everyone listening to this and yourself, we all know what's happening to me right now. But God's honest truth, I will get many people. So it's quite weird to do a podcast about the brain when mine is breaking right now. But the point remains is a lot of people will say to me, "How are you doing this? Like, how are you just carrying on as normal?" And my response is because, I've learned that without problems like this, how can you learn? How can you have personal growth? You can't. Yeah. And gratitude is the way I did it. And it's because I've created, you mentioned, forgot the word you used, but let's say I've created these connections,
the neural pathways.
Thank you, neural pathways that are centered around appreciation and gratitude. And it's my natural go-to now because I've practiced it. And don't get me wrong, I'll have my moments, I think we all
human.
do. Exactly.
We're all human.
I think exactly what you said. If you don't have anxiety and depression, you're doing it wrong. But for me, I'm kind of like my instant go-to, which it's took me years to do, is like, at least, but. And there's that word but, and I don't think people use it. People are happy to use the word but in a negative way. Oh, yeah, things are going well, but, it could be better. Oh, yeah, all right, I have lost a couple of pounds, but it could have been more. I'm deflated. So, whoa. But then when things are going the other way, people don't use the word but then. My life's going really shit. But at least, I've got milk in my fridge. No one does it. No one does it. And I think that ties into what you were talking about earlier, which is it's how our our subconscious brain is just programmed. It's either designed to think negative or think positive. But it's not hardwired. We're not blueprinted.
No, not at all. We're designed to go to the negative. It's a survival response. That's why human beings are at the top of the food chain. Because if we see the negative first, then it's a process of survival. The thing is now, in 2023, we're living in a relatively safe society and we've got lots of information. So we don't need to always go to the negative straight way. We need to say the but in a positive way, that we have got all these other good things. The news, the government, it's all designed to keep us negative, to keep us down, basically. That's what it is, to keep us down, to keep us feeling miserable. And if everybody's cost of living crisis and the energies are going up, but you know what? We're doing okay. Majority of us are doing okay. And if you feel, there's some place that you can help, this is what drives people. So some people really harness their anxiety and they do something with it. They channel their anxiety into protesting, campaigning, working for charities. They're finding an outlet for that anxiety. So then they feel like they're really doing something about it.
I love it. Jen, I could sit and talk to you for hours, but I know you're a busy woman because I'm just absorbing it all. But I love having people on that are just they get it. They're on my wavelength. Everything you've said. I'm like, yep. I'm with you. I'm with you.
If there's any questions, anyone going against us, I love getting in the debate as well.
Yeah.
So, and I like to hear different points of view. So, it's easy to come on a podcast and you can agree with the host on everything. But, a challenge as well. If there's any listeners now or watchers saying, like, if you want to challenge us on anything, let's open up the conversation, right? At least get some more points of view across. Let's help each other understand. It's the only way to do it. I think sometimes we've lost the art of debating as well. So we don't, although we're all in the same community that we do, there's a place of having a safe community where we do understand. But any questions, any comments, anything that if people don't understand, I'm here to help.
Yeah. I have written in the groups, if anyone's got any questions, fire away now to grab you. But in the meantime, Jen, talk to me, tell us a little bit about what your plans are now. I know you have a book that you've got. You can show the screen. Obviously, if you're listening to this on audio, you can't see this right now. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you will be able to see it. Tell me a little bit about that, because I've already had people asking me. I checked it out before you came on. As I said, I struggle with patience to read, but that's just because I have a lot of self-awareness. I'm very, very clued up in my personality traits and how I do, and what I can change and what I just don't need to add pressure to change. But audiobooks, if you've got an audiobook version, I absorb information through audio.
I'm here to help. First of all, my book's not very thick. And that's because I designed it for people with anxiety. So I've seen these really thick books on anxiety. I'm like, who's going to read that? So this is an introduction, really. I'm actually on my second book as well. So my first book, this one is called How to Empty Your Stress Bucket and Keep It Empty for Life. I'll do audio description. It's got a lovely bright orange cover. It's available at most bookshops. And
what do you think of psychology of colours? I just want to throw that in there because I've done some. Again, I've studied psychology stuff, and I know a bit about colours and stuff. And you just said that you've coloured it in that colour. Was there a reason behind that? No,
it's a bit of my brand colours. It's nice and bright.
Mine's purple. My brand colour's purple, and my favourite colour's green. Which you would imagine, but I've read a lot about psychology of brand colours and stuff, and why I've chosen purple, and it makes sense to me when I've looked into that, and why I've not chosen green, even though it's my favourite colour, because that's the colour of peace. I don't want to be peaceful. I want to come across as someone who knows what I'm talking about, and that's why I guess naturally I was driven towards purple.
I thought it'll stand out on a shelf, won't it, that one? And then the audio version is on my podcast for free. So I had to make it accessible. Obviously, my previous career being an optician, I wanted to make it accessible. I was thinking of doing an audio book, but there's a lot of work behind that. And I thought, you know what, I've already got an audio platform.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I just put it out on that? So I put it out on that in chapters, obviously, in different episodes. But my podcast is called Stress Bucket Solutions. And it's available wherever you usually get your podcast, Spotify and iTunes and everywhere as well. But my book it's got in there what we've been talking about today, why I talk about, the fight or flight or freeze and the intelligent brain and the primitive brain. And once you understand that, you can think, like I said, you're not broken. It's just different parts of your brain. It's understanding why you need to. And it talks also in there is about the solution focused formula I was explaining. Yeah. And so you can do that on yourself as well. Again, it's directing your own mind and controlling your own thoughts.
Amazing. I will be posting the links to that in the show notes on the podcast. For you guys watching this, I will post it in the group after. I know some people have already asked in the comments about Gin's podcast. So check out the books as well, because little books are great. You mentioned about the big book. I remember when J.K. Rowling decided to make the 5th Harry Potter book about that big, and everyone was like, we went through a phase in the early 2000s where that was big meant, oh my God, there's lots of story. But I remember looking at thinking, I'm not going to read all that. I like my little books tiny with pictures. I don't want stuff. So
and especially if you've got anxiety, it fills you with dread.
Know your market.
I know my market. Here's a book.
Here's a book about anxiety, and it's basically that big. Yeah. It's a yellow pages.
Loads of research papers in and stuff. Research references. I'm like, no, keep it simple.
I tried to read Byron Katie's book, and I like Byron Katie and her mindset, which is again about how we choose to encode people's people don't upset us, we upset ourselves, and it's once you accept that you can really start making the flip, the change. But the book was great, but then I quickly realised it's just the same examples again and again, and very quickly my brain's like, I can't do this. I get the point after about
it's a bit disingenuous, isn't it?
After 3 chapters, I'm like, I'd be annoyed if I actually. Well, I did buy it. I bought it for my wife initially, and she didn't finish it, and I thought I'll give this a go. And I remember reading, this is a bit of me. This, in the same way when you jumped on the podcast, I'm like, yep, I know exactly about this. Yeah. After about I've got about a quarter of the way through, thinking, we're just rinsing and repeating here. I don't like that. Yeah. But again, too much text. Yeah. So I'll plug those in, guys, if you're listening to this, because I'll be getting this myself. Make sure you guys do as well. We've got how many days? We've got 5 days till Christmas. Well, there's still time, guys.
It's a great Christmas present for the stressed out person in your life.
And if it's
your stress bucket.
Yeah, and if it's you, buy it for yourself. That's fine. That's okay too. What are brand colours? And Don't worry about that. That's just the colours that we choose to use for our social media. For whatever one reason or other. But someone did say, "Yay, green is the best colour ever." Of course it is. It's an amazing colour. But green and purple are up there for me. They're up there for me. I think I have two. When did it become a time where we have to pick one? I have two.
I know, I have two. Yeah, mine is actually orange and purple. So my next book's going to be purple.
There you go. You see.
Yeah.
Jim, what is the name of your podcast? Where can people go and search for this immediately after listening to this one?
Oh yeah. You got Stress Bucket Solutions.
Brilliant.
Available wherever you usually get your podcasts. So I put it out everywhere. And like I said, on that, I've read my book out in chapters. I started, I don't know about you, I started my podcast in lockdown. And you were talking about failure and learning from failure. I always think, you know what, like that first podcast episode, it wasn't great. But if I'd stopped then, I wouldn't have got to where I've got now. So I've got over 150 episodes now. But you learn from each one. Like you just know, I'm just going to carry on. So yeah, it's a bit of my chat, and I go off on various tangents. But I have some guests on, and I've had past clients on as well who've talked about their experience of therapy. But everything I've talked about in great detail is on there, and I've had a lot of people saying they've had a lot of help just from listening to the podcast and putting some of those things into place, like we talked about today: gratitude, learning to relax, sleeping properly, eating properly. You know, you're a whole person, so you know, look at yourself as a whole person. But I strongly believe you are the expert of you. So I'm not here as a therapist to tell you what to do. You need to find a way that works for you. And once you're in your intelligent brain, you will. So what you're saying, Callum, you know, you've found methods and solutions and a routine that works for you. So just like, you know, not everybody loves running.
Yeah.
You know, I like yoga, so that's my thing. So find what works for you, do more of that. You are the expert of you, and you'll find that if you can get into your intelligent brain, that's where you've got the most self-awareness.
Brilliant. One last thing that I'll sort of get from you, Jen, is obviously we know that Christmas is coming in a few days.
Yeah.
People might be thinking about New Year's resolutions, right? The 2024. Yes. So what would you like to leave people with a bit? What advice would you like to leave people with as they get to this bit now of this stressful build up to Christmas and then that gap between Christmas and New Year? Obviously, go and check your book out first, but you're more than free to plug that in. But what action points could you give people now? If you could give them some advice of, okay, people might have listened to this, gone, I'm hearing you guys, I've taken the information you just said before. When people said to you, I've learned so much just from, I've had people in the comments here saying, look, I've enjoyed this, I'm taking a lot from it. But that's great. But that's the first part. It's all in the follow-up, isn't it?
What we're going to do to follow up.
So what advice would you have?
So new year, new me and all that. First of all, I'll say to everyone, you don't have to have a new you. You were fabulous this year. You're going to be fabulous next year. So you don't have to do a new version of you. Now, the problem with New Year's resolutions is the reason they don't work is because it's an obsession. So you're going to go from, for example, the way you're eating now, and we're going to indulge over Christmas, and then we're going to go veganuary. So you're going from one extreme to another. Newsflash, you're still in your primitive brain when you do that. You're still in fight or flight or freeze because you've gone from, you know, this that's a hot mess, and you're going to, right, no alcohol, or, you know, absolutely vegan, or I'm going to hit the gym 5 days a week. It's another obsession. It's just like, it's an OCD. So, small steps. What a really good podcast. I don't know if you've listened to it, Callum, Michael Mosley's One Small Thing.
Yeah, I have actually.
If you did one small thing.
Got his book. Did he have a book that was called the same? Yeah, she got his book and she read that and she thought it was brilliant.
Small. I want you to make your New Year's resolution really small. You are going to drink more water. You're going to drink more water. That's your New Year's resolution. If you'd every month, if you carried on that, and then in February, you carried on drinking more water, and then you bring in another resolution. You're going to walk an extra 2,000 steps every day. Again, it's keeping it small. The minute you make your challenges very big, guess what? Triggers the primitive brain. It triggers fight or flight or freeze. And you'll be able to do it motivation doesn't keep you going. It's emotion that keeps you going. So that you can be motivated for a little bit and you'll keep going, but then it's going to start slacking off. So do not go from one extreme to another, because New Year's resolutions, they just don't work for that reason, because people go from one extreme to the other and it's not sustainable. You're going to burn out pretty quick as well.
So
do the same thing.
On top of that then, because I agree with you, by the way, but to take advantage and ride that motivational storm, that post-Christmas, New Year's resolutions, as you say, it's always about following rules, and that can never work out good. What do you suggest people do instead of creating a New Year's resolution? If they're coasting out of Christmas into New Year, like you said, accepting that they're already fine as they are. But if you're saying, okay, try and avoid the New Year, New Me mentality, what do you suggest doing instead?
I think we're all on a constant journey of self-improvement, if that's what you want. Look at how well you've done this year. Take a look back on this year and look at all the good things. What from this time last year, where were you? What have you lovely things you've done? Start looking in your diary. Been on a lovely holiday, and you kept up with some fitness goals the best you could, and you went to some nice parties. So look at all the good stuff that you did do. If you want to make a resolution, make it now. Don't wait for the 1st of January. If you want to start drinking more water, you can do that now. And it just takes away that pressure, right? 1st of January, right? That's it. So before the 1st of January, I'm going to eat so much chocolate because I'm trying to make up for when the 1st of January, I don't eat chocolate. So again, can you see the obsession here? Start now. And what you can do then is so you're having more water, you can still eat, you're just going to eat less chocolate as well. So start small with those resolutions. Keep relaxed really now. And I think you'll agree with me, Callum, stress means when you're more stressed, you hold on to weight. You don't lose weight. If you're trying to lose weight or get fitter, stress does not help you in any physical fitness goals. You have to work on your stress first. But don't forget, you're a whole person. I also talk a lot about sleep.
Yes.
Sleep is free therapy.
Shall we just be co-hosts, right? And we can just fuse our podcast together, because every single word that's come out of your mouth, I'm like, thank you.
That's right.
Sleep,
there's a really good,
and melatonin.
Definitely. So there's a good TED talk called "Sleep Is Your Superpower" by Matthew Walker. Watch that; it's excellent. There's little things you can. There's easy things you can work on. You know what? You're going to feel good if you start sleeping a little bit better, which means you're motivated to then pick up a new New Year's resolution if that's really what you want to do. There's no harm in New Year's resolutions, but don't rely on motivation alone. Bring some emotion into it as well. Why do you want to do it? What's that end picture of the emotion of why you want to do it? So if you've got a vision of something you want to achieve, and it can't be, you just want to get into that nice dress or whatever. There's something deeper than that. And the way to do that is keep asking yourself, what would be good about that? So what would be good about getting into that nice dress? And often people will say, I'll feel more confident. What would be good about being more confident? Oh, well, I might go for that promotion at work. What would be good about getting that promotion at work? Oh, I'd be setting a really good example for my kids. Right. Now you've hit on emotion. So the reason you want to lose weight or get fitter, if that's what you want to do, is because you want to set a good example to your kids. It's not because you want to fit into that dress.
There's a great quote. I can't remember. Perhaps you know it better than me, Jim, but it's not. I can't remember. I saw it. I can't remember who said it, but it's that people don't remember what you say or what you do. It's how you make them feel.
Yes.
And I think that is tied into the fact that it's the emotion is the driving factor there. And if you're planning goals, basically what you're saying is heading into January is reflect and improve on that. I'm doing this with my online members. Just at the end of a couple of weeks, we're doing an end of year debrief of looking back for all the things that we did this year, things searching for those wins, and then making a 6-month plan. Going, okay, brilliant. Based on that, where do we want to go from there? And allow time. No journey is linear. I think that's the problem. People expect it to be linear. It's got to go one way. The amount of times people go to me, I once had a police officer that I trained, right? And it stuck with me to this day. This was 7 years ago. She lost £5 working with me in a month, right? That's
Wow.
a decent amount. But I think she had this impression she was going to lose a stone. And we were doing well, and she just decided to quit. She's like, no. And she didn't even bother making an excuse to spare my feelings. She just basically went, I'm just very deflated with my results. I'm thinking, what more did you want?
Yeah, because it's not healthy to lose it any quicker, is it, Callum?
But I think that's the thing. It's like people were thinking that linear, oh, that's it, I've started training, so now I'm just going to go down, down, down. I have a good response, Jim, when people, I'll say to people on a consultation, okay, what do you want to achieve? And people have always got a number. They're always, you mentioned before, people just program that way. I want to lose £10 exactly, or my personal favourite, I want to get down to a certain amount of weight. And that's not how the body works, but okay, I want to get down to 10 stone. And my response is, cool, then what? And no one knows how to answer that question.
Yeah.
No one knows that because they don't think, and that's
great.
where you're saying it's not just I want to get to 10 stone, it's what do you want to feel like when you hit that number?
Yeah.
That's what you should be focusing on rather than a number itself that's ultimately going to go up and down.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And where have you got that number from? Exactly the same with me. People want the latest hack or the latest app that will sort out their anxiety. And I'm like, well, you could have that. Yeah. With me, it might take a little bit of work, but it's actually not that complicated either once you know, and you don't need a hack and you don't need an app. There's no one magic thing that will do it for you. 20 years of anxiety is not going to go away with one hack.
Brilliant. I've had some people, hope to see Jin as a guest again in the future. Fabulous choice, Callum. People are liking this idea, Jin. I like the idea of doing one thing every month.
Yeah.
Someone else says, yes, I also like the idea of doing something different every month. And that's it, isn't it? It's just avoiding overwhelm. You know,
and you can start now. You know what you're going to do just for the last few weeks of January. And like I said, it might be just drinking more water. That might be the only thing that's realistic for you to do right now. Keep it realistic as well. You know, you're not going to lose a stone before January the 1st as well. So just start drinking more water now. Like within 5 days, you're going to feel better.
Yes, Angela, you can hear Toby, and ironically, he was drinking water. He was drinking water. As you were saying, start drinking water, my dog was lapping up his bowl of water.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, is it just interference in my headphones?
I've got my headphones on, so I could only just hear. But yes, he's a powerful water drinker, so that's what you can hear.
Setting us all a good example.
Exactly. What a perfect timing, Toby. That was brilliantly. All right, Jen, I'm going to let you get off, but thank you very much. We'll definitely jump on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I really enjoyed it. We'll have a part two because we've got much more to uncover. But I think we've helped people today touch on dealing with the Christmas side of things. As it's a really tough time to deal with and heading into the new year.
It is.
But where can people go and give you a follow on your social medias? And then, of course, I will post the show notes anyway. But people listening to this now, where can they go and search you up and find out a little bit more?
Everything's on my website. ginlalli.com. So gin, spelled like the drink, Gin. Lalli, Lalli. So my website's ginlalli.com. I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn as well. I've got a Facebook group as well where I do a lot of some videos and things, much like yourself, of the solution focused formulas and things. But the podcast is where I send a lot of people because you can hear my voice and the way I talk about things. And I find that the easiest place to talk about solution focused work rather than writing it sometimes. So I like to talk about it, as you can probably tell from today.
Yeah. No, completely. That's why this has gone on for an hour and a half, because you're like me. We're talkers. But that's the beauty of it. That's the passion of it, and that's why I love podcasting, because that is the best platform for me to get my message across. Because I'd struggle to write a book if I'm honest.
Yeah,
I've got a lot to say, but there's no way I could do it. Thank you very much, Jim, for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Hopefully, everyone's enjoyed that. Taking something from it. Go and check out a book. It's a perfect little Christmas gift. It's only a small book. And go and check out some of Jin's podcast episodes as well, guys. Jin, thank you very much for taking your time out.
Thanks,
I know this has gone double the time of what we were going to, but I don't care. It was worth it in value. Worth it in value.
Chat.
And a lot of people giving little loves and likes and comments in the group. So they agreed too.
Thank you.
I check in on my other group, because I've not even checked my other group to see if there was questions in there. I don't think anything's popped up, but it's frozen on my laptop at the moment, so I can't see. But as far as my Shape with Sully group, yes, people are loving the stream. Good. If you're listening to this back on audio on Spotify, please send me an email or go and visit Gin's website if you'd like to ask her some more as well, and you can go check out her podcast and a book too. Right then, on that note, my dog wants to go out now, so I best let him out before you hear him making other noises that I don't want him to make. Awesome stuff. Peace and love is what we're after, and a healthy mindset. So, yeah, take care. Thank you very much for coming on, Jen.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks,
Merry Christmas.